cover this whole chapter today. And then starting next week, you'll finally have 2 days to cover a chapter until the next Monday off day. All right. When we talk about sensation and perception, with sensation and perception, you need to know sensation is the stimulus that your senses feel. Sensation is the stimulus that your senses feel. Sensation is a stimulus that your senses feel. Perception is how you process the stimulus based on experience. Perception is how you process the stimulus based on your experience. Perception is how you process the stimulus based on your experience. Does that make sense? Yes, no. Not so much, just like say, let's use for instance, a fly lands on you. Has everybody had a fly land on them before? All right, what happens when the fly lands on you? What do you think? What do you do? Okay, some of you brush it off. What are some of the other thoughts? What are your thoughts when it lands on you? Just to brush it off. What do you have? Nasty. What's some other thoughts? Okay, the nasty versus to just brush it off. What's the difference? Why would one person feel, oh my God, nasty, and the other one just is like, just brush it off? What's the difference? The stimulus is still the same. It landed on your arm. Why is it different? Some people don't care. And some people, I'm more of the nasty. And my thought is, oh my God, it was probably once on some dog poop. And now it has just landed on my arm. Okay? That's how my thought is. That's my first thought when I see a fly. Oh my God, he's got dog poop on his wings. So my thought would be nasty. Instead of just saying brush it off, I'm thinking brush it off, sanitize, wash my arm. Oh my goodness. I'm going through that thought. It's based on experience of seeing this fly on all of this mess and different things like that. Does that make sense? It's also based on if I was, let's just say I was raised on a farm and I always had to deal with flies and wild animals and wildlife, I would have a different perception based on that concept. Garden snake outside. Who, if you see a garden snake, you're just like, oh, it's a garden snake, and you keep walking. See? Okay, and you're running away. I'm probably frozen from fear that I probably can't even run. And I hear people saying, it's just a garden snake. And my thought is just snake moving. Well, what do I do? Okay, so we all see the snake. Our perception is that changes how we process it. Does that make sense? So sensation is what we saw. Perception is how we process it based on our experiences. All right. Now, in regards to sensation perception, you have this one thing called an absolute threshold. I'm going to tell you the riddle, and then we'll explain it. So this weakest amount of a stimulus that can be distinguished from no stimulus at all. Does that make sense to anybody? When you read that? No? Okay, yeah. All this translates to is it's the smallest unit your senses need to detect something is present. It's the smallest unit your senses need to detect something is present. It's the smallest unit your senses need to detect something is present. The smallest unit your senses need to detect something is present. Now, does that make sense? Literally just means the smallest thing you need to know has happened. Whether it's from sound, whether it's from taste, whether it's from touch, it literally means the minute something touches you, the smallest unit that you need, the smallest touch that you need. So when we say unit, it literally means whatever stimulus causes for that senses. So the smallest or the lightest sound you need to recognize your sound, that's your absolute threshold. If you're a person who likes a lot of salt in food, the minute you taste the salt, that's your absolute threshold for taste. Everybody's absolute threshold is different. Okay? Absolute thresholds can change over time. Taste, it's not so much taste buds, simply because taste buds is totally different. Taste bud is a sense. This is literally saying that it's the smallest unit you need to detect it's there. Taste buds might mean that one day you like salt, one day you don't like salt. That's not even what we're talking about. We're literally talking the minute you taste the salt is your absolute threshold. That's it. That's the absolute threshold. All of a sudden, you can't hear things the same. It used to be where you had the TV on 3. Now you got the TV on 23. That's now your absolute threshold. People who bake a lot, when they first start baking, the minute they touch something, their fingertips are hot and they have to move. After you start cooking for a long time, you can pretty much grab some stuff and not feel it anymore. That's your absolute threshold now. It's changed. You no longer feel it as much. Does that make sense? Smell, same thing. The minute you smell it, that's your absolute threshold. Okay, a mosquito. Everybody in this classroom has gotten bit by a mosquito before. It's just something that every human shares. The minute that mosquito lands on your hand, if you feel it, that's your absolute threshold. Some of you, it has to bite you for you to feel it. That's literally your absolute threshold. Everybody in this room has a different one. Okay. Now, here's another riddle. I'm going to read what it says first. Minimum difference in magnitude of two stimuli required to tell them apart. Make sense? No? Okay. All it means is there has to be a change of at least 50% of your absolute threshold for you to notice a difference. There has to be a change of at least 50% of your absolute threshold for you to notice a difference. Has to be a change of at least 50% of your absolute threshold for you to notice a difference. Now, this concept has a couple of different names. Difference threshold is the theme of it. Just noticeable difference is actually what we call it. Weber's law is the standard of which we hold it by. Difference threshold is the concept. Just noticeable difference is how we describe it. Weber's law is the standard of which we hold the concept by. Okay, so you'll hear those three names switched out. Difference threshold, just noticeable difference, and Weber's law. With that explanation, can you explain what difference threshold means? That's a no. All right. All it means is for you to notice something has changed, I have to reach at least 50% of your absolute threshold for you to notice the change has occurred. So let's go back to the food. You like salty food. Your absolute threshold is 4 shakes from a salt container. Okay, once we shake it 4 times, you can taste the salt. That's your absolute threshold. I have to put at least 2 shakes in there for you to notice a difference because I have to reach at least 50% of your absolute threshold for you to notice a difference. Okay? If grandma is listening to TV with you, depending on what her absolute threshold is, and she says turn the TV up, you have to reach at least 50% of it for her to recognize there's a difference. It can't be 50% of yours because she doesn't recognize that. It has to be 50% of her absolute threshold for her to notice a difference. Who's ever made Kool-Aid, iced tea, lemonade, something that you had to put some sugar in? All right, you made it for somebody, and they tell you that's not sweet enough. And you're like, okay, I'll add some sugar. You're going to taste it according to your absolute threshold. You're going to say, oh, that's enough sugar. They're going to still tell you it's not enough. The reason why, you haven't reached at least 50% of their absolute threshold for sugar for them to recognize the difference. So they would have to taste it till you reach their absolute threshold, at least 50% of it, and then they'll tell you that's enough sugar. You put some more in there. Does that make sense? Got it? Weber's law. Weber's law is like the standard of which we hold it by. So it's kind of like this is, I'll teach you later. It's called a psychophysics. So it's almost to where you heard of, it's like Darwin's theory. Darwin's theory, you've got, who's some other than people? Give me some more people who got theories out this big. Okay, all of those people got a theory. This is the theory on how we have thresholds. So Weber's law is kind of like the law of which we hold the standard. So literally we say we hold this standard based on what Weber's law says, that difference is required at least 50% change. Does that make sense? It's like the speed limit is 50 miles per hour. 50 miles per hour is considered safe in Gainesville. We're going to hold that as our standard. Now, we might say 30 miles because we're still under what? The standard of 50 said. Okay. All right, signal detection theory. Signal detection theory, literally, it's almost like a program that we use. What signal detection theory literally says is, I can detect a stimulus in the presence of chaos. I can detect a stimulus in the presence of chaos. I can detect a stimulus in the presence of chaos. So with this, they might put you with some headphones, make some sounds, and then tell you, please notify us the minute that you hear the beep. Okay, the beep is always present, but as it gets louder, we can see when you actually recognize it to identify your absolute threshold. Does that make sense? Who's ever did the hearing test back in first grade, second grade, where you raised your hand when you finally heard the beep? That's all that was, signal detection theory. Okay, have you ever looked inside of an eye scope to where they're trying to see when can you see this picture, when does it go blurry? That's a signal detection theory. Okay. All right, let's keep moving and talk about sensory adaptation. Now, how many senses do you have? Let's first talk about, make sure everybody's on the same page. Okay, you got 6. Everybody else got 5. All right. She has an extra one. That is all right with me. All right. So, in regards to these senses that you have what is considered positive and negative. So, positive adaptation literally means the process by which we become more sensitive to stimulus or low magnitude. In other words, it's literally now our senses have become more sensitive to our environment. Our senses have become more sensitive to our environment. Give me an example of when your senses become more sensitive to your environment. Sensitization. When do we? Okay, in the dark, and all of a sudden you see light. Very sensitive point in time. Okay. Desensitization. You now are less sensitive to a stimulus. You are less sensitive to a stimulus. Give me another one, Marcy. There you go. So much spicy food, you no longer taste it. How many of you like spicy, salty food? Okay. Eventually, people can give you salty and you'll be like, this is not bad. Someone else who does not eat it, literally every time they taste it, they're like, we can't go to this restaurant any longer. It's too much. Does that make sense? How many of you eat fried food every day? You eat at least one fried food every day. Well, that's good. Oh, just one. Okay. How many of you don't eat fried food, but maybe once a week? Okay. When you eat it, what happens? What does it taste like? Greasy. Stomach hurts. What else is occurring? Yeah. It feels like somebody poured grease in your mouth. All right. So, is that sensitization or desensitization? Sensitization. Why is it sensitive? Why are you now? Because you're not used to it and you can taste it. Now, the person who eats it all the time, they are what now? And why are they desensitization? Because what? They've kind of got used to it. It tastes the same. cold versus hot, your body temperature in regards to your house. Some of you walk into your house, it's on 60 degrees in your home. Sensitization or desensitization? Desensitization. Why is it desensitization? You're used to it, and see, we got over 70 is hot. Okay, 62 in the house, 74 in the house. So we got anything on over 70 hot, 62, 74. Now these is three different homes. You're gonna walk in these three different homes. Either you're gonna be like, oh, this is wonderful. This is what I'm used to. Or you're gonna literally be like, oh my gosh. Do you have a jacket? Do you have a coat? Do you have gloves? Scarf, please. Depending on if you desensitization or sensitization. Does that make sense? Understand, garbage men go through this. People who work in factories, hospitals, all of that will go through desensitization. They no longer pick up the senses. Does that make sense? All right, good. Now let's break down the different parts. We're going to start with the eye. We're going to talk about the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the skin. All right. Now, first thing you want to know about the eye. The eye picks up light. The eye picks up light. This is the only way it can see is literally by picking up light. What does the eye pick up? All right, when we talk about the eye, we're going to go through the different parts of the eye. The first thing we want to talk about is the cornea. The cornea is the protector covering of the eye. So the first part of the eye is the cornea, the protective covering of the eye. Cornea, protective covering of the eye. We then move to the iris. The iris is the color part of your eye. So if it's blue, green, yellow, whatever, it's actually a muscle. It contracts to let more or less light into the eye. The iris is the color part of your eye. It is a muscle that contracts to let more or less light into the eye. We then move to the pupil, the black dot inside the eye. The pupil dilates and widens to let light in and to focus on an image. Okay? The pupil dilates and opens wide to let light in and focus on an object. It also reacts to your emotions. Which part? It widens and dilates to let more light in and focus on an object, and it also reacts to your emotion. If you are angry, it might it might to where, you ever hear people say they black out when they get angry? The pupil has actually dilated to the point to where it's letting less light in, so your vision is almost cloudy to where you don't see a lot of images because it actually dilated to the point to where you only have a pin-sized amount of light entering. Versus a person that feels happy. Who's gone through, you woke up some days and you were just like, it was just a great day. You have no idea why, you were just happy. And it appeared that the world was brighter. It just looked like everything was, like it was just bright. Literally, your emotions were you're so excited, so happy that the pupil actually widened and allowed so much more light to enter that day. So you saw the world totally different. How many of you ever woke up just in a horrible mood? It was just the worst day. You just felt like this is a crappy day. And it felt like the day was outside was actually gloomier. It's because the pupil dilated and less let light in, and you just saw less light the entire day. Does that make sense? All right. Now, we then move to the lens. The lens allows you to focus. The lens allows you to focus, and it's also a protector. The lens allows you to focus, and it's also a protector. All right, once we go inside the eye, we then have what is called the retina. Inside of the retina, you have what is called the fovea. This is your retina. Inside the retina, you have your fovea. You also have rods and cones. Okay. Your rods allow you to have light. Your cones allow you to see color. Rods allow you to see light. Cones allow you to see color. Fovea. It's the center of the retina. In the back of the eye, you have what is called the optic nerve. The back of the eye, you have what is called the optic nerve. The optic nerve sends light message to the thalamus, which switches the information so the brain can use it. The process is called transduction. So light came through, we have the lens. Lens allowed you to focus. The light moved into the retina. The retina used the rods to see the light, the cones to see the color. It sent that light message to the optic nerve. The optic nerve then sent the message to the thalamus. The thalamus produced transduction, and the brain now can tell you what you saw. Everybody good? Still writing? What'd you say? Transduction is really like switching information. So we're going to talk about every part of your body has the optic nerve, olfactory nerve. Your skin has nerves. Your taste buds have nerves. All of them have nerves, but the brain doesn't know anything to do with it. Literally, when the light comes in, the brain just literally says that's light. We don't have any idea what it means. So what has to happen with the optic nerve? Transduction has to occur. It has to transform the information into a stimulus or change the energy so the brain can understand it. So although the optic nerve picked up light, when it transformed the light into an actual message, the brain then recognizes, oh, when you sent that light, once the thalamus switched it over, I can understand that's a picture of a book. Oh, that's a picture of my husband. Oh, that's a picture of my kids. But all you saw technically was light. The optic nerve performed and the transduction occurred. Now the brain can recognize what you saw. It moves very fast. Because remember, all this is a stimulus. This produces the perception. Does that make sense? This was the stimulus. This is the perception. Because if I show somebody else this exact same picture, you're just going to be like, oh, that looks like some people. But if it's somebody you know, once that switch came over, you're identifying, oh, that's a picture of whatever. That's transduction. Everybody good? Done with the eye? Not quite. The same as bipolar? No. It's just a cell. Yeah, no. All right, so we've talked about our optic nerve. Sends the information over. So this is the eye. As you can see all the different parts, it moves down to the optic nerve. optic nerve sends the information. When we talking about your bipolar, bipolar just means it's a two cell. Okay. These are the rods and cones. All this is inside of the retina. So you have your ganglion cells, you have your bipolar cells, you have your endocrine cells, and you have your rods and cones. That's just part of the processing. The fovea is the center of the retina. Mm-hmm. If you see it right here, this is the fovea, and you can see it's right in the center. It's where it's a little bit, it changes a little bit of the color. It starts the process. The processing. All right, we've already talked about rods and cones. Don't want to know about that. Dark adaptation and light adaptation. Understand, rods see light, cones see color. So in regards to dark adaptation, it literally takes the rods 45 minutes to adapt to darkness. It takes the rods 45 minutes to adapt to darkness. It takes the cones only 10 minutes to adapt. Rods 45 minutes, cones 10 minutes. What's wrong with this statement? Dark adaptation, rods 45 minutes, cones 10 minutes. What's wrong with this? Cones is for color. So literally means 10 minutes I can see color in the dark, but what's the problem with that? I can't see. Why can't I see? Why can't I see? There's no light. So the rods have literally takes 45 minutes for them to adjust to see some color, to see light, but I can see color. But there's a problem. If there's no light, there's no color. How many of you ever got dressed in the dark and you're trying to find just a little bit of light so you can make sure your socks match? Okay, because the color you see is what color in the dark? Yeah, you're trying to see, you probably see three colors. Black, gray, and it looks like white. Okay, and it's all because of the rods and cones. You got it? Understand, your rods are very, very sensitive. So the minute that you flick the lights on really quick, your rods actually go into overload. This is why it hurts so bad. Rods are going to overload. They are very sensitive parts of the eye. They have to be gentle and taken in gently. So in regards to color, we just started talking about color. These are the three things I want you to know the definition of. They're called the properties of color. The hue, the value, and the saturation. The properties of color, know the definition for the hue, value, and saturation. Know the definition. Know the definition. Oftentimes you hear about warm colors versus cold colors. Kind of like the idea behind this is literally your warm colors versus your cold colors, they all stem from gray. So when we give you the whole idea of colors, we talk about how we actually see color in the eye. Okay? And first we're going to talk about when we look at something in regards to an after image. Stare at the dot for a minute. Just stare at the dot. Stare at the dot. What do you see? Most of you should see the flag. It's literally what is called an after image. What it literally says is the image, although the image is removed, your eyes leave you complementary color factors. So it's almost like you see something, for a minute you'll still see it if you stare at it for a long time. It's like your eye giving you a complimentary review of what you just saw. How many of you looked at your phone so much you look away, you kind of saw your phone? And it's kind of like you had to like look again, literally because your eye is giving you a complementary image, which is called your after image. It's a complementary image of your perception. All right. Now, the eye sees color based on two theories, the triaematic theory and the opponent process theory. The triaematic theory, what does tri mean? Three. So the triaematic theory literally says your eye only sees three colors. The three colors, red, green, or blue. It literally says you only see the three colors. Depending on how you mix the three colors or allow more or less light in allows you to see the different colors. So you only see 3 colors. To see a variation in color, you either mix the 3 colors or you allow less or more light into the one color. Does that make sense? So you either are mixing red and blue, red and green, green and blue, blue and red. You're either going to mix 2 colors that way or mix all 3 colors, or you've got red, you're just going to keep putting more and more light inside the red, and you're going to get what color? Pink. So either you're mixing colors or you're changing light to see different colors. Either mixing colors or changing light to see different colors. Triatomatic theory. The opponent process theory is a little bit different. The opponent process theory literally says that you take colors that are opposite of each other and mix them together. You take colors that are opposite of each other and mix them together. So if we go back to the color wheel, the idea is that you're taking opposite colors, mixing them together to see and create color. Both theories have been proven. It's pretty much an either or type of opinion choice. All right, in regards to colorblind, we have 3 different types of color blindness. You have normal color vision, you have total colorblind, and then you have partially colorblind. Some people who are partially colorblind, which are usually men, can't see certain colors like lighter colors or some of the dark colors. There's usually the lighter colors they can't see, like the peaches and things like that. So we do a test. What's the first number at the top? What's the number at the bottom? Okay, this literally is a simple test that we can give a person to see if they see both colors, to see actually which part or which rate they score in regards to being colorblind. Does that make sense? Really simple. All right, visual perception. Remember back in chapter 1, we learned the principle of Gestalt. What was Gestalt's theory? You just took a test on it. What was Gestalt all about? Gestalt, yeah, Gestalt. What was he all about? He had this little saying. What was his saying all about? Was he? Was he? We look at the sum before we look at the parts. So, in regards to visual perception, the thought is literally that we're looking at the whole and not parts. And we're going to talk about the different types of visual perception. Okay? In regards to first, we have what is considered ground perception. What do you guys see in the first slide? What are the things you can see? Some people see a table. Some people see 2 faces. What else do you see? A bunny. Okay. A bird bath. Oh. Okay. Okay. It's literally based on your perception, but the idea behind the rules are literally how we organize the items. Okay. The first one is called proximity. We organize things based on how close they are. Depending on how close they are is how we organize them. We see things based on how close they are. So let's just use an example. We're in a neighborhood and we see 3 dogs in the neighborhood. On the first block, the dog is at the first house, the 5th house, and the 10th house. What are you going to tell me you saw on that block? What did you see? Dogs are on the first house, 3rd house, 5th house. Matter of fact, dogs are at every house on the block. There's just one dog sitting on every porch as you walk down the street. What do you see? How would you describe the block? What was on the houses and what was on the porch? Dogs. So you're going to literally say, oh my God, I walked down that street and there were what? Dogs on every porch. All right, let's change. We walk another block. Every dog that was on the porch is in the middle of the street together. Now, what did you see on that street? What do you call them? You probably say there was a pack of dogs. Why'd you make that a pack? Because they were together. The laws of proximity. We group things together based on how close they are. It could have been the same amount of dogs on the first block, but because they were spread out, we identified them as separate. The minute we put them all together, we identified them as a pack because of how close they were. Does that make sense? Walk down the street. You're at a store. You walk outside the store, and there's 9 teenagers outside. All of them getting in their separate cars. You just think what? Two get in the car. Now walk out. 9 teenagers are all standing at one car. Oh, there's a gang of teenagers. What did you just do? Proximity. You grouped them together based on how close they were. Does that make sense? All right. Similarities. You group things based on how similar they are. You group objects based on how similar they are. Give me an example of how you group something based on how similar they are. Cheerleaders, softball players, they're all what? Groups together because they are considered, what are they considered? Teams. What else do you think of them? If I said, exactly, if I said, oh, I went to a party with a whole lot of cheerleaders, basketball players, football players, and some tennis players, you're going to say what? That was a party full of what? Jocks. You just grouped them by similarity. Some might say athletes, group them by similarity. Does that make sense? So you group these things not only based on objects, but also people. Based on how similar they are, you group them all together. Does that make sense? Got it? Continuity. Continuity means you create a pattern in an effort to have unity. You create a pattern in an effort to have unity. You create a pattern in an effort to have unity. You create a pattern in an effort to have unity. You create a pattern in an effort to have unity. You create a pattern in an effort to have unity. So this is our proximity. This is our similarity. This is our continuity. We also have closure. Closure, you fill in patterns to give you completeness. 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 Okay, mine is Matthew. It's an all-women's class, which is usually what 10-10 is always like. So, how many of you as women ever had a breakup? Only 3, 4, 5. Raise your hand. It's okay. It's part of life. If you have not had it, you will have it one day. It's just part of something that happens. Okay? Whether y'all get back together, you just gonna have that one moment. Once the relationship was over, what happened? Did you just say, okay, I'm done? Pack yourself and move. Depends on how long you dated them. Okay? Now, how many of you ended the relationship? Okay, so when you walk away, why were you able to walk away? Because you already had closure. You were done. What happened when they ended the relationship? What did you need? I need to know why, what occurred, and what's going on. And who's the other person that's causing all this to happen? Okay? Why did you need that? Because you needed closure. The difference was when you did it, you created your own closure. When they did it, you needed to obtain the closure. Does that make sense? Because it does not make sense to you till you were able to close in the gaps. You already gave us another semester, but it's a long one. understand it goes how long you've been there and how invested you are. Okay? Depending on how invested you are, the closure literally is, all right, I kind of seen it. Understand, as women, we always know it's coming. It's a matter of how much we want to accept when it gets there. We always know it was coming. We justify it until it gets it. You've got to. It's called intuition, and we'll talk about it later. Everybody, Matthew's a male, but he has intuition too. It's just a sense you know something's not right. The problem is we justify it. You knew something wasn't right the first time that you called and the phone wasn't answered. And you kept thinking something isn't right. And you said, he's probably in the bathroom. He probably didn't hear the phone. Justification occurred. It's just what we do. We just like that. That's just us as women. Okay? Which gives us the whole idea of common fate. We literally group things together because we think it should go together. We group things together because we think it should go together. We group things together because we think it should go together. If his friend cheated, he cheated too. It's just we group things together because we think it should go together. It makes sense to us. It's how we see things. We think so. We group things together because we think they should go together. All right, and we've done closure. Now, how we process. We process through what is called top-down, bottom-up. I really need you to get this. Top-down, bottom-up processing. We all process each way. It's just when we do it. All right, so we're going to start with bottom-up. Bottom-up literally means you process based on what the stimulus picks up. Bottom up. You process based on what the stimulus picks up. Literally what it is what it is. You don't do anything but describe what you see, describe what you hear, describe what you feel. You process things based on what the stimulus picks up. That's bottom up. You process things based on what the stimulus picks up. Top down, you process based on your perception. Top down, you process things based on your perception. It's kind of what you think, what you've experienced, what you know. Let's go back to the snake outside. Bottom up, we all saw a snake. What was outside? A snake. How big was it? 7 centimeters. Top down, it was a huge snake outside, and he was all near me. Okay, and everybody's like, somebody else was like, it was a snake, and he was outside. We all saw 7 centimeter snake outside. How we processed it, somebody saw a snake, somebody saw a snake. Okay, I'm like that with spiders. I'm literally like, babe, oh my God, it's this huge spider outside. And he's like, it's huge? And I'm like, yeah, it's huge. When I saw it, that's what I saw. Huge. And he walks out like, oh, it's not that bad. It's only this big. I'm like, no, you didn't see it good. I'm like, that mug was big. But that's how I process it. Oh my God, if he gets in the house, I'm not going to be able to get out because I won't be able to walk past him. Okay, or I'm going to use all of the spray to try to kill this one spider. But that's how I'm processing it. Does that make sense? How you process. So bottom up is literally what we saw. It was a 7 centimeter snake outside. No, because it's literally based, and this is why we always talk about common sense isn't common. It's personal, because literally what I see is what I actually see. So let's just say, for instance, everybody, I don't know if we tried this, where you close your eyes and you vision people. Did we try this? Okay, close your eyes. I'm going to be a newscaster. Okay? You're going to vision what I am saying by just the news. Okay? Here we go. Today we are in Atlanta. I am reporting from the downtown area where a woman has just attacked the Department of Social Service worker for trying to take her kids. Open your eyes. What do you see? What does she look like? What else you see? You see a white chick? Okay. Close your eyes. Okay. Good. Close your eyes. Welcome to Idaho. We are currently here trying to cover the serial killer who has just killed 7 more people. Open your eyes. What'd you see? Okay, what you did was you did all of that from top down. I did not give you don't. I didn't give you a description of anybody. I didn't give you. All I gave you was the scenario, and you went through and processed it based on your idea of what they should look like. That's top down processing. So if somebody literally said, "I was at this club, they started fighting," all of y'all got the image of who was fighting, and then when you're like, "What happened next?" and they're like, "Oh, so and so," you're like, "Oh, I didn't have a picture that that's who it was." I think there was a serial killer a couple years ago, and all they kept saying was serial killer, serial killer, serial killer. Then they showed a picture, and I remember everybody going, "Oh my, he's a black man?" Because the thought was he shouldn't be a serial killer. He could be a killer, but not a serial killer. Exactly. Okay, and he was literally shooting people at the gas station. If you got out of your car, he shot you. I mean, you literally can go into the gas station. He was just taking people out randomly throughout city. It was no reason for his choices. He would just take you out if you were at the gas station, you were walking into the grocery store, you were going into the bank. He literally was wherever he would literally get on top of a building and literally kill you. He was that skilled. Now you see what his idea was this. When technically all he was randomly shooting people with no justification. But he literally gave he gave a algorithm view of why he shot the people he shot. Technically, they had no relations, no similarities. He just randomly did this. Based on top down. hmm Because it's based on your experience. Does that make sense to you guys? This class, all of you have top down processing and bottom up processing. Okay? When you first walked into class, it was more like, okay, she said we got 10 questions on the quiz, 20 minutes, bottom up. Then you took the quiz and you were like, oh, heck to the no, top down. When she says that, that's a totally different concept than what I was thinking. Does that make sense? That's all that is. Okay? All right, let's keep moving. You need to know what's called mononuclear cues. Mononuclear cues, mono means what? One. These are the things that you only need one eye for. The things that you need one eye for. Mononuclear cues, the things you need one eye for. Mononuclear cues, the things you need one eye for. Mononuclear cues, the things you need one eye for. So you only see out of which eye? Okay. So you would have no issue doing any of these things. But what she will have an issue with is what are considered binuclear cues, things that both eyes are needed for. Binuclear cues, things that both eye are needed for. And I'm going to show you an experiment of how you're going to be a little the difference. Retinal disparity is the first one. Retinal disparity, I'll give you the definition and then we'll explain. Retinal disparity is when both retinas take a picture to create one image. Both retinas take a picture to create one image. Both retinas take a picture to create one image. Both retinas take a picture to create one image. A little bit different. What it is literally take your pen and move it about 2 inches from your nose. Now, close your right eye. Close your left eye. Close your right eye. Close your left eye. Right, left, right, left. What's the pen doing? It's moving. Has the pen moved? No, because what technically occurred when the pen first sat there, you just looked at it, was retinal disparity. Your right eye took a picture, your left eye took a picture. They created one picture so you knew exactly where it was located. Now, if you only have or can only use one eye, you kept moving, pen never moved. Make sense? Convergence. Convergence is when the eyes use their muscle to recognize closeness. The eye uses its muscles to recognize closeness. The eye uses its muscles to recognize closeness. The eye uses its muscles to recognize closeness. Take your pen again and just start to bring it closer and closer to your nose. Keep looking at it and bring it closer and closer to your nose. What are your eyes doing? They're coming insert. They're literally turning inward. That is convergence. They're using their muscles to figure out how close the object is. Got it? Good. Know the definition of these 4 concepts. Know the definition of your perceptual concepts. Know the definition. And let's go ahead and move to the ear. The eye is complete. Does everybody understand the eye? All right, good. Let's go through the ear. First thing you need to know with the ear is the way we actually hear things. We hear things through what are called waves, sound waves. You hear things through what are called sound waves. You hear things through sound waves. You hear in basis of 2 different concepts, the pitch and the loudness. Pitch is the frequency, loudness is the height of the wave. Pitch is the frequency, loudness is the height of the wave. You hear in sound waves, pitch being its frequency, loudness being the height of the wave. The higher the wave, the louder the sound. All right, now let's go through the ear. We're looking at this ear. This is our ear. All right. So the outside of the ear, which is kind of like a funnel, is called the pinna. The outside of the ear is called the pinna. The outside of the ear is called the pinna. P-I-N-N-A. The pinna is the outside of the ear, the funnel. The sound waves enter the pinna and is filtered into what is called the auditory canal. The sound waves bounce off of the pinna and enter the auditory canal. Sound waves, auditory canal. It then vibrates on what is called the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. You can call it the eardrum. Sound enters the pinna, goes to the auditory canal, bounces off the eardrum. It then vibrates the 3 smallest bones in your body. The 3 smallest bones in your body, the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. If you're in medical terminology, anatomy, physiology, you probably call it the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. But in psychology, we call it the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. I have no clue. We just like being different. Okay, got it? So where did the sound bounce off first? And filters into the, okay, we losing class. This is like head and shoulder, knees and toes. Bounces off the what? Filters into the vibrates the, then vibrates the, vibrates off the, goes into the, taps off the, vibrates the, okay, and then it's processed through the cochlea. It processes through the cochlea. Processes through the cochlea. Processes through the cochlea. Now, if you ever met a person that is hearing impaired individuals have, um, what's those things called? Thank you. Hearing aids. They amplify sound. So they can still hear, they just need to hear louder. Okay, so they literally have hearing aids to amplify. If you have a person that is deaf, they usually have problem with the cochlea. They can't even process sound, so they no longer hear sound. Okay, so they have what are called cochlear implants. Cochlear implants are placed outside of the head. They're actually drilled into the skull and then filtered into the cochlea for sound to actually be generated. So, hearing impaired literally means they still have sound. They wear hearing aids. Deaf have cochlea damage. They wear cochlear implants. Okay? Now, after all this sound goes in, bounces off the cochlea, it then goes to the auditory nerve. What occurs when it hits the auditory nerve? What process? What's it called? What's that process called? Sends it to the brain. What's that process called? Transduction. Who does the transduction? The thalamus. All right, so let's go through the ear all together as if you were back in kindergarten. Okay, if we go have to create a song for you to notice, we will create one. The sound bounces off the, then it goes through the, then it taps off the, then it vibrates the, then it processes through the, and then it goes to the, and what's done? Transduction by the, woo. All right, so this just gives you all the different parts. You guys have got that. We're good. One thing you do want to be, or you might want to know, is what we have, what's called organ of Corti. Organ of Corti are actually the small hair follicles you have on your ear that recognizes the differences in sound. Organ of Corti are the small hair follicles you have in your ear that recognizes the differences in sound. Organ of Corti, hair follicles you have on your ear that recognize the differences in sound. Inner side, it's like that. And we already kind of talked about deafness. All right, we move to smell and taste. This is pretty simple of what we do here. Understand, smell is done by what is considered the olfactory nerve. Smell is done by the olfactory nerve. Anything in your nose is considered olfactory. So smell is recognized by the olfactory nerve. Smell is recognized by the olfactory nerve. Odors actually trigger emotions, memories, and sensations. Odors trigger emotions, memories, and sensations. An odor is literally anything that creates a smell. So we usually use the word odor as smelly. An odor is anything that contributes a smell or attributes a smell. Perfume is an odor. Garbage is an odor. Food is an odor. Okay, it triggers. What does it trigger? Emotions, memory, and sensation. Now, women are actually attracted to urine and sweat. Sorry. Yeah. Women are actually attracted to the smell of urine and sweat. Okay. It's just literally something about the smell of urine and sweat that actually generates a stimulus in a woman. Men are actually attracted to your menstrual cycle. You release a pheromone at that time that he can smell. He does not recognize it, just like you don't recognize it, but it actually activates a sense in him, which is why it heightens his sensitivity during that time. Okay? I hate to relate us to dogs, but we're kind of like dogs. Sorry. We just are. Yeah. And he can just smell it. Your spouse, if you're a woman, when you ovulate, you give off a pheromone. They can smell the pheromone. It actually activates them to want sex more during that time of the month. They will literally want to be around you closer. They'll start to touch you more when you are ovulating, because you're giving off a pheromone that you don't even know you're releasing. You are in heat. The body recognizes it. It releases the pheromone. You release it in multiple production. He can or she can smell it. They want to be close to you at that point in time. It's the time of the month where they touch you more. Okay? You just don't know you're releasing it. All right? Hopefully you don't. Just say, taste. I'm saying, hey, you don't know what we got going here. Now, this is the tongue. The tongue is divided into categories. These are your categories. Okay? The tongue on the top tastes what is called the sweet, or what is called umami, which is really a fatty taste. There's a catch about the tongue. The tongue can only taste things based on where their buds are. So if you put something sweet back here, your tongue won't taste it, because that's not where the sweet taste buds are. You must taste the sweetness of anything on the tip of your tongue. So if you want to taste if it's sweet enough, place it on the tip of your tongue. You will taste it. Okay? Side of your tongue is your salty. You cannot taste anything unless you place it on the side of the tongue where the salty taste is. You ever try to taste something, you taste it on the tip of your tongue, you're like, oh, that's not bad. Then you bite into it and you're like, this is, oh my gosh. Literally because you finally hit the taste bud that generates that taste. Got it? In the back is your sour. If you ever ate a Sour Patch Kid or a lemon, where does it hurt when you bite down? Right here. Why? Because you just hit those taste buds. Taste it right here is just fine. The reason why Sour Patch Kids work so good is because they're hitting this part and that part. Okay? The back is your bitter. Ever take cough medicine? When you first put it in your mouth, you're like, this isn't bad. As soon as it hits the back of that mouth is where you feel like you're about to gag. Now, there's a catch about the tongue and the nose. If you pinch the nose and take away the odor, the tongue cannot taste. Yeah, why you go through all of that to consume anything, I just don't know. But exactly. If you take away the nose, you take away the taste. Ever want to eat something you don't like the taste of? Pinch your nose, consume it. You will not taste it. The minute you let go of your nose, any residue left on the tongue will be taste. All he has to do is pinch his nose. He can swallow it. Now, when he swallows it, you have to give him something he likes right afterwards to wash it off the tongue. Yeah. The minute the nose smells it, it creates a taste. So the thought is sometimes you taste stuff that you smell, even if you're not eating it. Ever walk by Krispy Kreme donuts and you're like, I can taste them donuts. They're not even in your mouth, but you taste it. When mama's cooking, you like, I can taste that. You really can, based on the smell. Ever walk by some garbage and you like, You're tasting based on the smell. That's how they actually operate together. Yeah, you ate the whole meal and you never took a bite. That's how I think I gained 5 pounds when you walk by something. Yep. The minute you taste, I've had a lot of stuff. I don't eat salt at all, so I'll like go like, oh, it's not bad, and I'll bite it like, and it. I've been at people's houses, and I'm like, oh my god, I really want to take this out, but it was so rude, and I know that I need to taste it here, so I'll know not to consume it. But you got to know where your taste buds are, and you'll know when to eat it and how to eat it. Salt is horrible. Now the skin. We're gonna end with the skin, and the skin is probably one of the most amazing parts of the body. One is because it is one of the biggest organs in the body. Okay, it covers everything. It is very sensitive, but it's sensitive in more areas than none. All right, so we talk about the skin. Understand first thing, it regulates temperature. Your skin regulates temperature. Your skin regulates temperature. Your skin regulates temperature. They've recognized actually that your fingertips, the roof over your mouth, and your inner thigh are the three most sensitive areas on your body. Top of your mouth, your fingertips, and the internal parts of your thigh. Most sensitive parts of your body. Inner thigh. Inner thigh, fingertips, top of the mouth. Woo, boy. You can get a lot of response. It's something about that inner thigh. It's probably because it's an area that the nerve endings are very sensitive, and you usually the reason why it's so sensitive is because it's near your genitalia. It's supposed to be sensitive, so it's near that area that it's supposed to be touched, and you're supposed to have a lot of sensitivity. This part, it feels like you do this all day, so it gets used to this, and it's new. This part is where part people usually just don't touch this. It's like if somebody's this close, you kind of thinking, you know, why are you just, ooh, hold on. So it's that area, and then this is sensitive because you're supposed to be able to grab things to tell if it's too hot, if it's too cold, step away that way. But the problem is this can become numb. Okay, you can make this to where it starts to be desensitized after so long. All right, pain is good. Pain is great. Pain tells you something is wrong. Pain is a good thing. Pain is great. It tells you something is wrong. Okay? We have what is called the gate theory of pain. The gate theory of pain. The gate theory of pain literally says the spinal cord, remember we talked about the spinal cord before, okay? The spinal cord must send all pain messages, and the body must send all pain messages through the spinal cord. So anything that is happening, let's just say these are legs, you hit your knee, it must travel up the spinal cord through the gateway, the gate theory, to talk to the brain to tell them it hurts. If there's any blockage in the spine, you feel no pain. If it's a tumor there, if you injured it, if epidural, yeah, epidural is a good one. During delivery, all I got to do, shoot you right here, block all pain receptors. I can cut you, I can slice you, I can dice you, you feel nothing. Yeah, you want to make sure they hit it right. Now, if they don't give you enough, if it's just got a little way, if there's a little squeeze, pain will find its way through the spinal cord. Okay, ever have a backache? If your back hurts so bad, you won't feel anything in your legs. They might even go numb. Because literally what happens is the gateway was closed. That's circulation. That's a vascular thing. So literally like a lot of people sometimes the blood, because you're sitting like this, the blood kind of starts to do a trapping type of thing. So literally like people tell you if you ever do a Plane ride for longer than 4 hours. Drink Gatorade or Powerade because you need the body to use electrolytes to move the blood. So when you sit like this for so long, the blood starts to get to where it starts to settle. It's not so much clotting. It clots if it's repairing stuff, but it kind of just starts to settle in areas. So sometimes it'll just tell you just move a little bit so that your brain knows circulate, circulate, circulate. Because if not, it's just kind of like it's just the brain's way. And it's more not even psychology. It's just automatic. It's part of that autonomic nervous system. No activity, no need to move. Move, flow. Okay. Phantom limb pain. Know that we do have what are called phantom limb pain. This is literally when somebody has lost an arm or a leg or some type of limb and still has pain. There's no body part there, but yet there's still pain there. Psychologically, the part is still there. Psychologically, they can feel the arm, they can feel the pain, but yet there is no limb. To them, oh, it's true pain. It's true pain to them. It hurts. It throbs. What we usually have to do is take a mirror. We take a mirror because we now have to get to the brain to recognize it's not there. So we'll place a mirror next to the one leg, then tell them, please look at the mirror so that they can actually recognize there's nothing present. Because looking down, they still see it. They feel it. They cannot psychologically understand. It's almost like anorexia. And believe me, when they see it, they see something totally different. But when we place the mirror, for some reason, the mirror triggers the mind to say, I don't see a reflection. It's not there. And sometimes they'll go through a whole psychological breakdown, oh my God, and start crying because it's like you just kind of shock them that it's not there. It's a very sad thing to watch. There are usually people who lost a limb are already going through some other things about the loss. So it's a traumatic experience. Society treats them different. So it's horrible. We talked about the gate theory of pain. Acupuncture. Acupuncture is actually a method that's been around a very, very long time. It is an ancient Chinese method of dealing with pain control. And what it does is the needles actually generate endorphin release. Remember we talked about endorphins in chapter 2. It's part of your own morphine. So what acupuncture actually does is it stimulates the production of your neurotransmitter to stop the pain. Some people don't like the idea of needles placed inside of them. That's a preference. But it's just like small needles in wherever your pain is. It stimulates the endorphin release to eliminate the pain. Okay. Some of them do it like in the head part. I've seen some that do it along the whole back. They usually do it in the sensory receptor area. So wherever that sensory receptor is, so say I'm trying to get my hand, I want to put it here because this is where the sensory receptor sends the message. So I'll do it here instead of doing it in my actual hand. Okay. Kinesthetics or vestibular, let me see what I want you to know here. Know that kinesthesia is literally saying where the body is located. It's where the body is located. It's the positioning of the body. Where the body is located, understanding the position of your body. Just anything, any movement in relation to movement. Keep moving. ESP. Know that this is that extra. Remember 5 senses. This is the 6th sense that some people might have, and it's called ESP. It's called what we call pseudo-psychology, which is considered to be fake psychology. It recognizes it into 4 different parts. The parts we really recognize are 3: precognition, telepathy, and clairvoyance. Okay, precognition, telepathy, and clairvoyance. In an effort to get ESP recognition, you have to go through a study called the Rhino study. The Rhino study consists of 25 cards. You have to identify 25 cards. You have to have 5 cards in order out of the 25. So literally, I'll have the cards covered. You've got to guess the 5 cards in order without seeing the cards to be classified as one of the ESP fields. Does that make sense? That is your chapter 3. This one doesn't work. Print chapter 4. No. What is your chapter 4 in your book? In your book, what is chapter 4? That's chapter 4 in your book. Consciousness is in your book. Okay, print consciousness for chapter 4. I'll change it around. It's two different ones. Okay, go into your course. Go into PowerPoints, and you say it's consciousness. It might be your chapter 5. All right, chapter 5. I'm going to change it right now. That one. This is kind of extra stuff for you just to have. So what is consciousness is what? And what is the lifespan development is what chapter? What's chapter All right, so print your chapter 4. It's been rearranged. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. The other ones I'm gonna relabel 6 through 10, 12, 14. I'll relabel as soon as they send me a book. So just go into PowerPoints, print chapter 4, and we'll finish chapter 4 next week. Chapter 4. We haven't had Mondays in a very long time.
Holiday.
I know. You may do this with a pencil.
Oh, you can do it.
Yes, Grace. Okay. Oh, okay. Yes. This is what we just did with the ESP. You got a pencil? Grace, let me see it. So this was those last slides. So this is what that is considered. Okay. We actually call it pseudo psychology, which means it's fake. So we don't believe in it because of this. We don't believe there's enough evidence. So remember, psychology is a science. So because we can't support it, we don't believe in it. We don't have evidence. That's a good thing to do though. But you should have the answers here. Grace, you should be able to get all of these answers, right? It should be. Let me find out. This makes no sense. I know they gotta give you their answer. This is a good one. Let's find out what they do. Okay, here you need book review. Are they on the card? They give you the test without the answers? No way. Now that's interesting. Okay, I've ordered a book, so when it comes, I'll be able to tell you. Okay, that's a good thing to practice on. Yes. Yes. No, this one will be different. Remember, the lowest thing we need. What is the first part we need to notice something's there? What is that called? Nope. This one be look for that one. That's gonna be a different answer. Uh, move your finger. Yeah, this is the lens. Hey, I'm all right. How about you? Did you really? I try. I try. I try. Oh, darn it.